All right, we're live. We're back in action. Another week, another All-Star MMA pick show. I'm your host, JHK. And of course, I got my guy, JSpec, alongside me. Today, we are joined again by one of the masterminds out there, Mike's MMA Picks, one of the best, one of the most knowledgeable guys in the game. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, like, subscribe. It helps. Everything helps, with the algorithm, the algo, like people like to say in the industry, the tech industry. Um, Today, man, we're gonna be talking UFC San Antonio. Uh, I don't even know the last time they've been to San Antonio. It's been quite a few years now, and it's gonna be an intense card, I believe, headlined by Marlon Vera and Cory Sandhagen. We will go through all the fights, make our predictions, make our picks throughout the show. I need you guys to utilize the AllStar app. We'll be utilizing the AllStar app and making the picks. Actually, I'll be making the picks on the screen. Um, Last week I went 9-5. A couple of the picks were were controversial. The reason why is because of the judging out there. I mean, the judging has to be a factor now into how you make your picks and location as well, which kind of sucks. But I'm up 70 wins, 40 losses. So it's not too bad of a year so far for me. JSpec, he's sitting at 57 wins and 53 losses. He's riding the pine, so to say. For all of you guys watching, make sure you guys give your picks throughout the show, give your comments. We'll put them on the screen. Give your tidbits. If you have some kind of information that we don't know, if you have some insider information, I'm all about freedom of speech. So throw it in the comments and we'll put it on the screen. Now let's jump into this weekend's card. To kick off the event, we were supposed to have a women's bantamweight matchup, but that fight was canceled. Vidal has medical issues. We don't know exactly what that means, but if you have medical issues, man, health is number one. So if they have to cancel the fight, they have to cancel the fight. Bad luck for Cohen. This is her second attempt at making her debut. This time around, it's not her fault, but it is what it is. Hopefully they get compensated, or at least Cohen gets compensated for showing up. Let's get into the first fight, a flyweight bout between Vinicius Salvador and Victor Altamirano. Salvador, 26 years old, 5'7" southpaw, 14-4 record, making his UFC debut here. 2022 Contender Series winner, round 2 TKO last August. He's on a 4-fight win streak, 100% finishing rate, 13 KOs, and 1 sub. But before I go to Victor, let me put the app on the screen. Let me put these guys so you guys have an idea of who these guys are and throw their pictures up there, right? Let's see them. Here we go. There you go. All right, now going to Victor, 32 years old, 5'8", switch stance fighter, 11-2 record overall, 1-1 in the UFC. He is a 2021 Contender Series winner. He had a split decision victory over Carlos Candelario. He's coming off his first UFC victory, a first round TKO over Daniel De Silva last August, and he is sitting as the betting underdog. Mike, I'm going to throw it to you. What do you see in this matchup?
Well, first thing I'd like to point out is that I believe there's a size discrepancy. I'm seeing 5'8", 5'7", 5'6" on all different sites for both of these fighters, and even sizes as Vinicius Salvador is 5'9". So I suspect that Salvador is going to be the taller fighter in this matchup when these two square off at weigh-ins on Friday. Salvador is a fighter who can crack. He is a finisher by trade and typically likes to land the knockout punch. He's taking on an Altamirano who has yet to be knocked out in his professional career. Look at Victor Altamirano, has more process to his game. The older fighter has some LFA experience. He also plays the cello. That does not play any role in this handicapping at all, but I caught that doing research. Now, I will say, the De Silva fight, there are some causes for concern because De Silva was able to crack him and drop him right off the bat. And Salvador is not somebody who you want to play with inside of the octagon. If Altamirano makes one or two mistakes, he could pay for it with this consciousness. Now, Altamirano is the hometown fighter, and he has I've seen him dig deep in many of his fights. I wasn't really impressed with the Carlos Candelario fight. Ugh, this is a tough one. This isn't the highest level flyweight bouts. I've had a knack for betting on flyweights, but I'm going to be picking the underdog here, Victor Altamirano, and I think he's going to be able to outlast Salvador. Salvador is going to be throwing heat though, so this could be dangerous and could end via knockout for Salvador. I'll be picking Altamirano though.
All right, JSpec, what do you got?
Well, first I want to share a comment from Zach. He says, El Magnifico. The LFA run that Altamirano had sways me to his side. Love that they rebooked what was supposed to be a Dana White Contender Series fight. It's finally getting an answer as to what would have happened. I lean towards Victor by decision, and that's from Zach. Thanks, Zach. The public poll coming in pretty lopsided on this one. Altamirano getting 71% of the people's support in our fan poll. If you want to participate in fan polls, follow me right there on Twitter. Drop them every Wednesday. They run through Thursday right before the show starts. So there you go. A couple of things when you look at Vinicius is he's making his debut. You guys already know, and if you don't know, I'm really touch and go on debuters unless there's some good reason. I need some support for that. And when I tried looking, I kind of found more things to worry about. If you look up his opponents, not the deepest level of competition. I know some of the records you can find are not fully official, but I saw 3 fighters between 2019 and 2022 that he fought that were debuters themselves, and he already had 14 fights. If you're a 14-fight fighter, why are you fighting guys just coming out? I don't know. It sounds like padding, but you know, it is what it is. For me, I'm gonna agree with what Zach said earlier. The LFA run from Victor is not a joke. I highly respect the LFA. I know once upon a time, not that long ago, just like a couple years ago, that was the way to prove yourself if you're ready to be in the UFC, and I still think that has some merit. So all that being said, I'm going with Altamirano.
When you look at Vinicius Salvador's win on Contender Series, it's against Shannon Ross. And you guys got to know the backstory of Shannon Ross in that fight, right? Shannon Ross had appendicitis and still went in there and fought. And it took Vinicius into round 2 to beat him. You know what I mean? It kind of says something about Salvador. I don't think he's battle tested like Victor. I think Victor has stepped into that. Well, I don't think Victor has stepped into that octagon a few times now, and now they're stepping into a big arena, right? I feel like Victor will be better ready for that moment than Salvador. So I'm also going to take Victor in this matchup. You got to go with the guy that has cut his teeth in the promotion for a couple of fights. So I'm going to take him. I'm going to go with the decision. I think this fight goes into the 3rd round, and it's going to be close. I think Salvador will likely crack him, but you know those Mexicans, man, they're tough. They're super tough, and they can take a punch. And I think he's going to have to take a couple punches to win this fight. Now let's move on to the next one in the lightweight division. Manuel Torres faces Trey Ogden. Torres, 27 years old, 5'10" Orthodox fighter, 13-2 record overall, 1-0 in the UFC. He's a 2021 Contender Series winner, 1st round KO, 92% finishing rate, 6 knockouts, 6 subs. He's riding a 4-fight win streak. His debut was a knockout against Frank Camacho last May. Ogden, 33 years old, 5'11" Orthodox fighter, 16-5 record, 1-1 in the UFC. He's also coming off his first UFC victory against Daniel Zellhuber, a unanimous decision, 69% finishing rate, all submissions, 6 months between fights for him, and he is sitting as the betting underdog. Mike, how do you see this guy?
tough fight to call. Got to be honest. Ogden, we saw him fall short against Jordan Levitt at one point. That really does not sit well with me. He had a blueprint to beat a gassed Jordan Levitt, could not do it, made multiple mistakes in that bout. Now came out, fought a great fight against Zellhuber, but the problem was we saw a gun shy fighter on the other side of the fight. So I wouldn't necessarily give all of the respect for Ogden there. He's fighting someone who's going to come out guns blazing against him in this matchup. And, Manny Torres is going to be coming out a man on fire. I think he's going to end up catching Ogden and taking him out of there. I'm going to be picking Ogden here. I mean, I'll be picking Manny Torres here, but I think we're going to see Ogden knocked out. Problem is, if Ogden can formulate a game plan against an opponent who's from the same camp as Torres, then could pose some problems. But I think Torres is going to overwhelm him early. That's my pick, Torres by knockout.
JSpec?
Well, first off, I want to send some congratulations to Mr. Ogden. He is a new girl dad, so congratulations on the baby girl there, dude. He seeks to win this by submission. He thinks that's his way to go. Another thing I learned about him is apparently he's the manager of his own gym. So he's being like full-time coach and full-time fighter and full-time dad. That's too much stuff, my dude. So that makes me, besides all the other talented things that Mr. Torres brings to the table, I like winning your debut. I'm pretty inclined to go with Torres in this one. I'll keep it short.
This is a hard fight to pick. But before we get there, we got a comment from Artem MMA. What's up, team? What's up, Artem, man? Good to see you joining us. If you look at Torres, right, his losses are all by submission, which is interesting, right? Very, very interesting. And Ogden, he's a submission guy, and he's a guy that he's methodical, right? He wants to take the fight to the ground. He wants to take your neck. And Manuel Torres is a storm, man. His last 3 fights are all first round knockouts. Actually, all first round finishes. 2 of them are knockouts, 2 of them are submissions. Though he can go anywhere. He's a guy that's looking for the finish. I'm gonna take Torres in this one. I think this youngster is gonna come out guns a blazing, like Mike said, and he's gonna take out Ogden. I'm gonna take first round knockout in this one, man, as well. I think it's gonna be crazy. Let's move on to the next fight in the flyweight division. CJ Vergara takes on Daniel da Silva. Vergara, 31 years old, 5'6" orthodox fighter, 10-4-1 record, 1-2 in the UFC. He is a 2021 Contender Series winner. He won that by first round knockout. He has a split decision win over Clayton Rodriguez, and I feel like that means a lot. 60% finishing rate, 6 KOs, 5 months between fights for him. Da Silva, 26 years old, 5'6", switch stance fighter, 11-4 record, 0-3 in the UFC. All 3 losses via finish, 100% finishing rate for him, 5 knockouts, 6 subs, and he is the betting underdog. Mike, how do you see this matchup?
Wow, another flyweight matchup. Man, Vergara is a survivor. I got to say, he doesn't necessarily pose a lot of threats when he's actually fighting from an offensive perspective, but he waits until opponents make mistakes and then capitalizes on them. I've seen that in a number of his fights. And you want to talk about someone who makes mistakes? It's Lacerda, Daniel da Silva, aka Lacerda. Man, da Silva, when I watch him fight, he is an athletic specimen. He is not afraid to throw caution to the wind. And the guy, from a technique perspective, it looks crisp what he's trying to accomplish out there. The problem is he overcommits on just about everything. And it's almost as if he doesn't consider the consequences of his actions inside of the octagon. He puts himself in some horrific situations. The Francisco Figueiredo loss, there have been others. But I will say, if somebody's going to catch Vergara, it could be da Silva. The thing, though, I keep coming back to this. We see a lot of fighters in Texas, and the crowd's going to be behind Vergara here. I'm going to be picking Vergara, but this is a very sketchy fight. honestly think this is one of the most volatile matchups on the entire card. And you're talking about minus 250, which is a massive betting favorite. This is Vergara's typically a plus 200 underdog in most of his fights. Okay. I know that's matchup dependent, but the guy's usually the underdog. But to see him as a massive favorite is concerning to me. And I'm not touching this fight from a money line perspective, but I will say, I don't think this fight hits the scorecards. You look at De Silva's previous matchups, he's usually out of there, win or lose, in under a round. So I'm contemplating playing the under 1.5, looking at the under 2.5. It hasn't opened at some books, but I think that is one of your, I hate to say the safer plays. There is no such thing as a lock, but I don't see this fight going the distance. I'll say that, especially in front of the Texas crowd, and you've got Vergara as the hometown fighter there. I think that is going to light a fire under everybody's asses on Saturday. So the pick's going to be Vergara by knockout.
All right, JSpec.
Well, just remember, Mike said there's no such thing as a lock. Comment from Tay Baza. Sorry, CJ is a lock. Daniel De Silva isn't UFC level. He keeps getting finished. That's not a good look at flyweight. CJ KO round 1 or 2. The fan poll comes in nice and strong for CJ. 81% of the fans signing up for support of Mr. Vergara. Man, we got a situation here, right? I think both these fighters are on their 4th fight in the UFC, and unless I miss something, that's right about where you conclude your final fight and then negotiate. One fighter is 0-3, back against the wall ultimately, and what we know about fighters with their backs against the wall, we usually see their best performance. But I don't see this playing out in the magical fashion that some people, the 19% of people supporting Daniel goes. I think CJ gets this. He gets the renegotiated contract. He continues on in his UFC campaign, and it's adios for De Silva. That's just my opinion. So my pick, Vergara.
All right, Raw Tort CJ is the side, in my opinion. Round 2, 3, or decision. El Loco, first round KO. I think he's referring to the last fight. Man, in this matchup, Vergara's win against Rodriguez, I think that's massive. It's a telltale sign like that. He's a decent prospect. And when you look at Da Silva, the man, he's gotten finished every single fight in the flyweight division. That's very rare. You know what I mean? Not many guys are getting finished back to back to back to back. I think CJ goes in there. I think he has the best performance of his UFC career in this fight. This is what I see. And I see him going in there and getting that knockout in this fight in his hometown in the 2nd round. Let's do it. All right. Now let's move on to the welterweight division. Trevin Giles versus Preston Parson. Giles, 30 years old, 6-foot orthodox fighter, 15-4 record, 6-4 in the UFC. He has wins over Luis Cozy, Roman Dolezaj, and James Krause. 73% finishing rate, 6 KOs, 5 subs, 6 months between fights for him. Parsons, 27 years old, 6'11" orthodox fighter, 10-3 record, 1-1 in the UFC. He lost to Daniel Rodriguez in his debut by knockout, then defeated a short notice Evan Elder by unanimous decision in the 2nd fight. 90% finishing rate, all submissions, 11 months between fights for him. And this is a near even on the betting odds. Mike, what do you see?
Oh, man, this is another fight where you have a hometown fighter, Officer Giles, who I believe he's out of Houston PD, right? But man, this is a closely contested matchup. I'm leaning towards Parsons here. I was very impressed with I know he got finished by D-Rod, but the way he entered that fight, threw caution to the wind, went for it, had a few moments in that fight, and then the Elder matchup, performed well in that fight. You saw the grappling. I know he's fighting somebody who now competes at a lower weight class than we're talking about. And you have Giles, who was at 185, now is at 170. I don't really trust Giles at 170 pounds. I know the Morales fight took place, and then the Kosi, the Kosi fight is not going to age well. There were so many. You talk about the ebb and flow of the fight game. That was it in a nutshell. Each fighter had their moments. Here, Parsons will push a pace. Someone is going to hit the wall as far as a gas tank goes, and Parsons will not get away from the grappling. That's one thing I like about him. There are a few things I don't like about Parsons, but one of them is that he overcommits from a grappling standpoint. He'll fall over the top. He loses position. When he goes for his submissions, he'll get reversed. And that is a concern of mine, especially when you're investing your hard-earned money. But I will say this, Officer Giles, I got to say, it appears as though his better days may be behind him, yet he's only 30 years of age. The James Krause fight, that was very closely contested. There have been others throughout his career. He does throw straight punches down the pipe, and I like seeing that. He also has a decent ground game. I like Parsons here. I got to say, I think that the young kid on the block is motivated, and he's got gas to go all 3 rounds hard. I'm going to be picking Parsons here.
All right, JSpec.
Reading a comment from Andrew. I would love to bet on Giles based on experience and striking advantage, but I can't bet on low IQ. Parsons struggled with D-Rod, a bigger guy, so I anticipate the same with Giles. I see why this is a pick'em. Just sit back and enjoy this one. The fan poll comes in. Another strong opinion, strong results from the fans. 71% of the fans signing up for Trevin Giles in this one. The best little side notes I got is apparently Giles is recently signed a new deal. So I bet he's happy with that coming into this fight. Kind of plays into what Mike said about the hunger on Parsons' side for this, right? He's gotta get his money on. It's hard. This is a hard one. This is why the bookies have it split or dead even money. They're just trying to take their cut on this one. They're leaving it up to a coin toss for all of us. If I flip a coin, which I didn't, I'm going with my heart and my brain here. Giles for the win on this.
All right, you guys, if you're watching live, make sure you guys put your predictions in the comments. Go into descriptions, download the AllStar app, and make your picks. We got Raw Torque giving his prediction. Giles has a better resume in his opinion, so which means he's maybe going to go with Giles. When you look at this matchup, when you look at Preston, his debut was against Daniel Rodriguez. He got finished in that one. His second fight, which he won by decision, was against a lightweight coming in on short notice, Evan Elder. And to me, that's a sign as well. And also, one thing I know about Parsons is he's very similar to Ogden. He has his own gym, I believe. He's working all day, trains. His life is engrossed in the game, right? And maybe it's just too much. And Giles, ahead of his last fight, he actually quit his job as a police officer to become a full-time fighter, which means, it gives him time to recover from his training. It gives him time to cut the weight better. And maybe that's why he went down to welterweight in his last fight. I'm going to go with Giles here. I think Giles is going to take this one, and I'm going to go with decision. I don't think we're going to see a finish in that fight. All right, let's go to the next fight coming up. All right, here we go. A featherweight bout. But before we get to the featherweight bout, we got a couple more comments about the fight. EB, he says Giles is pretty dumb. He's a cop, but them Texas judges are on one. Oh, that's another factor, right? It's the Texas judging as well, right? Giles has had some good luck in Texas. Giles has never developed. He peaked many years ago. But, to counter that, I feel like Giles is probably going to get better because he's focused 100% on fighting now. His career is fighting. It's not half police officer, half fighter. You know what I mean? And I think that will benefit him tremendously moving forward. Featherweight matchup. We got Steven Peterson taking on Lucas Alexander. Peterson, 32 years old, 5'10", orthodox fighter, 19-10 overall record, 3-4 in the UFC. He has wins over Chase Hooper, Martin Bravo, and Matt Bassett. 68% finishing rate, 6 KOs, 7 subs, and he has been out for almost a year. Alexander, 27 years old, 5'11" orthodox fighter, 7-3 record, 0-1 in the UFC. His debut loss was against Joe Anderson Brito on short notice. 43% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 5 months between fights. He is the betting underdog in this fight. Before we get to Mike, I will play a clip from my interview with Lucas Alexander.
He like to brawl. He like to come to fight, and I like to fight. You know, I love to fight. I have 10 pro fights as MMA, but I have over 100 fights as a amateur kickbox. You know, he strike. It's I feel like it's almost awkward for him, for everyone who fighting him, but Matt's perfect for him, if that makes sense. Fits perfect. It's the type of guy. It's dangerous. You have to respect. You know, you have to be locked in. You have to be focused. You cannot be lazy for a second. Yeah, I don't feel like he's just gonna come crazy and then throw punch. You have to thinking about the phones, the gloves. You have to respect, and you cannot just run through someone like that. If he does, he's gonna get hurt for sure. A lot of eyes on the fight, especially for Steve. He been a UFC fighter for a long time, and they know his style. So a lot of people is curious about me. So I'm gonna give them, what they want.
This is an interesting fight, Mike. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that interview, John. That was stellar work. You know, this is a fascinating matchup here because you have a quasi zombie in Steven Peterson who can it almost seems like he walks through just about anything that his opponents throw at him. We saw against Julian Erosa, he took more than the kitchen sink, and he had a Team Fortis backer, there who was giving him instructions. And this is another situation, John, where we have the hometown fighter and Lucas Alexander. It seems like he is ready for this specific opponent. He knows what his job is. He's talking about his kickboxing background, and it's going to be tough to win a decision here against Peterson, who's going to be the one marching forward at all times. So I'm going to be rolling with the underdog here. I think that Alexander is going to be throwing counters early and often, and Peterson is going to be marching forward. Now, the crowd may become a factor here. They're going to love seeing the hometown fighter take some damage and get back to his feet, march forward, and try to put it on the younger fighter here, who's only 27 years of age. But a concern of mine is Alexander only has 3 knockouts to his resume, and you look at the other side of the fight, and it's been a long time since Steven Peterson's been taken out of the fight. And Peterson has a decent gas tank. I need to mention this too, guys, that Peterson has struggled making weight in previous fights, and I think he came in pretty darn heavy against Julian Erosa. So I wouldn't put it past him to struggle on the scales again. And that may be an issue down the stretch here as this fight goes longer. So I'm going to be picking the underdog here, Lucas Alexander. But it pains me because I know how much of a dog Peterson is. I had some money on Julian Erosa earlier in the year, or was that was 2022, and I was sweating bullets in that matchup. I gotta be honest. So I'll be picking Lucas Alexander though. I think he's got more promise, and his volume is going to be a difference maker here. Thanks.
Swing it to you, JSpec.
Well, that was a great interview. There's a bunch of other stuff you want to go watch and see that. Get easy access to it right in your AllStar app. One of the cool things that was said in that, yeah, that's right. One of the coolest things said in there was his immigration story. I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the just the hardships that he's gone through. More important to the fight is he talked about taking that short notice fight and all the things he learned from that experience about how fight week should go and all the preparation going into it, and how it was just, rushed. I'll just cut it short. It was rushed for him. So now he feels very prepared, really ready for this moment. We got a comment from Tay Baza saying Steven Peterson is a lock. Lucas Alexander shouldn't be in the UFC, and we saw that in his debut versus Brito. That's one opinion. The fans come in nice and strong, 63% for Steven Peterson on this fan poll. Now, talking with people, the thing I keep hearing about Steven Peterson is he's a dog. He's a dog. He's been through. He's warrior. This, that. You know what the downside of being a warrior and being through all that is? Damage. All right, that's mileage, dude. That's mileage on the clock. And sometimes that goes against you. Not sometimes. Eventually, that goes against you. I'm not saying he's shot yet, but You got a younger, fresher fighter. I don't know, is not too much younger, but just fresher as far as combat mileage goes. And with that all being said, that's what sways me to the underdog, supporting Mike's pick. I'm going with Lucas Alexander on this one.
All right, you guys watching, put your predictions in the chat so I can throw them up on the screen. Raw Torque again, he says, I trust Fortis, game planning, leaning Ocho. So he's got Steven Peterson as his pick. Steven Peterson, man, he's a fan favorite. He's a guy that marches forward and throws bombs and gets hit and eats them like Tic Tacs. And it's worked for a long time, right? But people are starting to figure it out, I think. People are starting to see like what needs to be done to beat that type of fighter. And Mike made a great point about the weight, the scales. If he goes in and even if he makes weight this time, who knows how tough the weight cut was for him. You know what I mean? We don't know exactly. And I see Peterson, and I love Peterson. I love his style. He's a cool dude too, man. I've spoken with him many times in the past. But I think Lucas just has that kickboxing style, and he'll be ready because his coach, Julian Williams, man, he's a phenomenal. I think people don't talk about that guy enough, man. He also coaches Phil Rowe, and Phil Rowe has done really well for himself as well. And Mike Davis, you know what I mean? These guys are the ones that train Lucas. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna take Lucas, man. I think Lucas gets the knockout in this one. Either it's gonna be round 2 or 3. I think that's what's gonna happen. I think Peterson's gonna last because he's durable, but I think he's gonna get that second round knockout in this fight. Before we get to the next one, we got EB. Peterson might be the pick of the card because Lucas is too raw. Haven't bet it yet because maybe Lucas has improved. And he says, Peterson, if you want easy money. Hey, that's why he's the favorite, right? But if I was betting actual money, I would take Lucas in this spot. I just have a feeling that Lucas has the skill set. And the thing about his finishes, all of them have come in his most recent fights. He started his career with a lot of decisions. Now his most recent fights, which are the 3 finishes, knockouts, they're all in his last couple of fights. So there you go. Now, featherweight, the prelim main event, so to say, between Daniel Pineda and Tucker Lutz. Pineda, 37 years old, 5'7", orthodox fighter, 27-14 record overall, 4-5 in the UFC with 1 no contest. His most recent win was against Herbert Burns, a second round TKO on the ground. 100% finishing rate for this man, 9 knockouts, 18 subs, 21 months between fights for him, and he is the betting underdog. On the flip side, you got Tucker Lutz, 28 years old, 5'8" orthodox fighter, 12-2 record, 1-1 in the UFC, a 2-time Contender Series winner in 2020. He has a win over Kevin Aguilar, 67% finishing rate, 6 KOs, 2 subs, 15 months between fights. This is a matchup between 2 guys that have been gone for a long time, Mike. What do you see?
Yeah, man. Could you put Pineda's record back up there for 1 second? I want folks to understand that the man has yet to win a fight via decision. That is incredible. Look at how many fights he has. Look at how many wins he has via decision. 0. That is an incredible number. It's almost incomprehensible how that's possible. So he's all gas, no brakes. He's been that way his entire career. I love watching him fight because he puts everything into every strike, every sequence, every transition. But the problem is that does come at a cost. And also he has been suspended for PED use in the past. We saw him have some success in the PFL. And man, this is a tough spot because Pineda, he does have a solid ground game that could pose problems, especially in the first round. But I think if Lutz is able to get out of this first round, then he should be home free and should be able to really put it on Pineda here. You look at Lutz, still only 28 years of age. He was in there against Sabatini, who I know he was taken out recently. But I have to go with the younger fighter who's probably not on PEDs at this stage in his career. Another concern, though, is that Pineda is a hometown. He's a Texas fighter. So The crowd's going to be roaring when they introduce him. It's just a matter of can Lutz weather this first round storm, because it is going to be a storm early and often for the first few minutes. So I'll be picking Lutz to win, and I think he gets the finish late.
JSpec, what's the community saying?
Got a comment from Tay Baza again. Wow, people are picking Pineda. He was really good in his prime, good boxing, decent BJJ. Now he's just slow, doesn't throw, and his gas tank of late has been poor. His heart doesn't seem in it anymore. Lutz throws everything into his punches. I see him KOing Pineda's Porchin. The fan poll tight on this one, very contested. 53% of the fans selecting Daniel Pineda. So there we go. That's what the fans think. On my side, try to dig around, try to find something. And Pineda, from his own words, says, this fight, I see it ending. One of us is getting KO'd in the second round. I don't know about that. I like when fighters like, I'm sleeping that dude. Not one of us is getting KO'd in the second round. That seems tricky, not really supportive of your own brand. Next to that, he was really cagey about his injury. He basically said he had a lower half of his body injury that basically sidelined him for a good amount of time. And one thing you can know about lower half injuries to a fighter is they slow them down, right? Movement is a key element of fighting, and that's one of those things that you got to put a question mark on. So with all that being said, last thing I want to add, Pineda's last fight of his contract. So take that for what you want. There we go. So Lutz is my pick. I know I sounded like I was supporting Pineda there. Tricked you. I'm going with Lutz.
All right, Raw Torque. He says Lutz round 1 or 2. Luklin 88. Tucker round 3 decision. Pineda, he actually, I believe he was suspended most recently for Adderall, which is interesting, right? And Mike, could you remind me, like, was he suspended for steroids in the PFL, the Jeremy Kennedy fight? That was all part of PEDs, was that right?
Man, I don't want to miss. I don't
remember that, right?
Correct. I'm looking it up right now. Pineda, I know it was in the PFL.
Yeah, he has 2 fights in the PFL back to back where they both were overturned to no contest.
Yeah, January 2020, he was fined, and his win was turned into a epitestosterone was in his test. Pulled him from the $1 million featherweight title fight. So,
yeah, he had some good wins though. You know, he beat Movlid, who ended up becoming the champion, and he beat Jeremy Kennedy. Both. You know, I mean, he's a talented guy, man. But I think, that could have been the PEDs, right? Like
it says both of the fights were overturned and have been turned to no contests.
Okay.
Kennedy and the Movlid fight.
Yeah, that sucks for these guys. You know what I mean? Because you want an even playing ground. Pineda, he's 37 years old. He has a lot of fights. Tucker's 28. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I'm not gonna go with the underdog in this one. I think Tucker goes in there. I think he grinds him out. I think he gets a decision win against Pineda. So I'm taking Tucker decision against Pineda. But I might be completely wrong. You know what I mean? Pineda's he's an animal, right? He's an animal. Now, main card. A middleweight bout between Chidi Njokuani and Albert Duraev. Njokuani, 34 years old, 6'3", orthodox fighter, 22-8 record, 2-1 in the UFC. He's a 2021 Contender Series winner. Wins over Dusko Todorovic and Marc-Andre Barrero. 68% finishing rate, 14 knockouts, 1 sub, 6 months between fights for him. On the flip side, you got Duraev, 34 years old, same age, 5'11", orthodox fighter, 15-4 record, 1-1 in the UFC. He is also a 21 Contender Series winner. He has a win over Roman Kopylov in his debut and a doctor stoppage loss against Joaquin Buckley. 80% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 9 subs, 9 months between fights for him, and he is sitting at the betting underdog. Mike, what do you see in this one?
Oh man, this is Sean Shelby, nice job booking this fight because you talk about styles making fights. You've got very contrasting styles here. You've got Duraev, who wants to take this fight to the mat and maul his opponent on top. And then you have Njokuani, who is going to look to strike and land some clean knees and punches as Duraev is closing distance to shut him off. And you you look at the Gregory Rodriguez fight against Chitty, and man, there was one or two strikes could have ended that bout, and you would have had Njokuani be the victor. But that isn't how fights work. A fight isn't over until it's over. That's one of my. I want to make that into a T-shirt. By the way, a fight isn't over until it's over. It's amazing how people say, "Oh, this guy was winning. This guy won 14 minutes of the fight. They were on their way to winning. They were the minus 1,000 betting favorite live." But no. A fight isn't over until the final buzzer sounds or the ref steps in. So Duraev, he's going to need to take this fight to the mat to have success. I am concerned for him at range. Both of these fighters have significant experience, both inside the octagon and on the regional scene too, or outside of the octagon. I believe Chitty spent time in Bellator and other promotions. Man, tough spot. I was originally, I like to lean towards the fighter who has the wrestling advantage here, someone who's going to hold their opponent down and burn top time. There's one of the best things I've ascertained. One of the skills I've ascertained is the importance of understanding when you're on top of your opponent, you're burning time. And now with the judges, the way they score things, sometimes if you're not doing damage, John, you know this, they're not rewarding it. So Duraev can't slow down. He's got to try to finish Chitty if he ends up on top of him. But I think Chitty's going to catch him here, to be honest. And I'll be picking Chitty by knockout. I honestly think he gets this done early, and I think we're going to have the San Antonio crowd on their feet. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Spurs jerseys out there. Also, I saw Marlon Chito Vera wearing a Spurs jersey at when he was signing autographs a couple of days ago. But give me a Chitty in that spot. But hey, I understand why folks are playing the underdog here.
All right, JSpec.
All right. Got a comment from Andrew. Duraev has shown in his 2 UFC fights that he cannot keep people on the mat. If he can't keep Chitty on the mat for 15 minutes, he's going to get hurt. His left eye has been swollen shut in both fights. He has not fought at a high level, against a high level kickboxer like Chitty. Chitty rolls. All right. The fan poll, tight. We had some big spreads earlier. Now they're getting a little tighter. 57% of the fans clocked in for Chitty and Njokuani on this one. I initially looking at this fight, one, it's one of the fights I'm super excited for. Two, I kind of started going Duraev, but the more I thought about it, usually I fade fighters that are coming off of TKOs and KO losses, but really, who doesn't get, like, if you don't beat RoboCop, you're getting slept by RoboCop. So it is what it is. Totally side note and not of any real value, but I'm going to share it anyways. When I was at Stephan Bonner's celebration of life, I was sitting right next to Chitty, and he's an awesome guy. He's one of the few modern era fighters that was there showing respect. And for me as a martial artist, if you show respect to your past, you have a bright future. And all that love makes me give love. So Chitty and Njokuani for this fight.
All right. Yeah, this is an interesting one, man. I think this fight's gonna be, a game of inches for Njokuani, because if he can use his reach and stay on the outside and use the kicks, he could probably be able to starch Duraev, right? But if he starts off the fight and just pushes forward, puts Njokuani against the cage and just tries to grind him, I think he's going to be able to win this fight and get him tired too as well. You know what I mean? If you look at Njokuani's last losses, of course, we know the RoboCop loss, but then you got him losing to Rafael Carvalho, grappler, right? Not even a wrestler, a grappler. And then you got John Salter. He lost to him. He lost via first round submission. And then before that, he lost to Koreshkov, also a grappler. And those are also first round finishes. I look at history. I think Duraev goes in there. I think he's going to be able to pressure him and stay away from the big shots and press him against the cage and win this fight, grind this fight out. He's going to grind it, and it's going to be a close one, and people are going to be screaming, and it's going to be controversial. But I feel like Duraev's going to win this a decision in this fight. This is just my inclination. But if Andris Kawani goes out there and gets the first round knockout, I would not be surprised. And I think anybody watching the fight shouldn't be surprised if that actually happens. Next fight coming up, a flyweight contender clash between Alex Perez and Manel Kape. Perez, 31 years old, 5'6" Orthodox fighter, 24-7 record, 6-3 in the UFC, riding 2 straight losses. He has wins over Jussier Formiga, Jordan Espinoza, and Shorty Jose Torres. 50% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 7 subs, 8 months between fights for him, and he is the betting underdog. Kape, 29 years old, 5'5", southpaw, 18-6 record, 3-2 in the UFC, 3 straight wins over Ode Osborne, Zhalgas Zumagulov, and David Dvorak. 89% finishing rate, 11 KOs, 5 subs, 3 months between fights. This is an exciting matchup right here. Mike, you're the flyweight master. What do you see?
Yeah, I love this fight. This is another Sean Shelby. Thank you for putting this fight together. Great matchup. And I have had a lot of success backing Alex Perez in many of his matchups. I backed him against Carl's John de Tomas, Eric Shelton, Jose Torres, the Joseph Benavidez fight, that was a bit of an anomaly because there was a headbutt there. Mark De La Rosa, Jordan Espinoza, Jussier Formiga. And then I ended up fading Perez against Devison Figueiredo. And I also faded Perez when he fought Alejandro Pantoja. So I have a great track record of eyeing these flyweight fights, but this is a great matchup, guys. JSpec, I gotta be honest. I love this fight. I cannot wait for the octagon door to close behind these two fighters. And high level, extremely high level. My question is, though, on Friday morning, is Alex Perez going to make weight? That is a concern of mine. I got to be honest. You look up and down his resume, he struggled for a while. And this is a guy who, if you look up and down the Tapology page, he gets up to about 145, almost 146 pounds when he weighs in at 125 pounds. On fight night, he's around 145 or so. But he's also competed and had success at 135 pounds in the UFC. So the Schnell fight, Schnell didn't take the fight. That's something that needs to be mentioned when Perez missed weight. So the wrestling of Perez, could it be a difference maker? Yes. Could the speed of Manel Kape be a difference maker? Heck yes, it could. Could the recency bias, the everything that we've seen over the past year and a half, 2 years, everything that we've seen points to the electricity of Manel Kape, his ability to land crisp, precise strikes at the target. That is as clear as it gets. That's very important. The other thing I need to mention is Alex Perez, when he has been inside of the octagon, he's a bit of a tank in there. He marches forward. He's willing. He shells up, keeps his hands up, and he's open to the body. He's open to the chin. He needs to hunt Manel Kape down to have a legitimate shot at winning this fight. If he doesn't get a hold of Manel Kape and land a takedown here, he's going to be in big trouble. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to be picking Manel Kape here. I think that the arrow is pointed up for Manel Kape. I know he does have his wrestling deficiencies, but this is a larger octagon. And I know when you do get taken down inside of the larger octagon that you don't have you can't find your way to the cage as easily. So those open space takedowns are huge. But I have a feeling, and that when I watch the tape, I think Perez is going to struggle closing distance here. And And here's another key factor. I think that Manel Cap's ego could come into play here. That if he is taking Alex Perez lightly and acts doesn't act accordingly and acts too flashy and takes this shot for granted, because he is very close to a title shot right now, guys. If he takes his opponent lightly here, that may come back to haunt him. I don't want to see him dribbling a basketball in the octagon or shuffling his feet, pretending he's Muhammad Ali. I want to see him sticking to the task at hand, which is beating Alex Perez. And you talk about speed kills. Manel Cap has the speed advantage by leaps and bounds here. And also the precision striking is huge. So I'll be picking Manel Cap here. I'm a huge fan of Alex Perez. He's made me a lot of money in the past, but at 31 years of age, and also you watch your guys who conduct interviews. So I don't know if you've heard Alex Perez's interviews prior to this fight. It seems like he's putting in a lot of work to try to make this weight this time around. He's 31 now. It's not like he's 25, 26 years old. So a lot of things are pointing in the direction of Manel Cap, though I have spent a lot of time researching this specific bout, and the pick's going to be Manel Cap.
JSpec?
Well, the fans come in strong, loud and clear, supporting Mike's idea. 71% of the fans signing up for a Manel Cap in this matchup. It's pretty obvious. Everywhere I go, any conversation I get into, it's pretty much Cop Army coming out loud and strong. Not a whole lot of verbal support for Mr. Perez, though there should be. I mean, he's legit, and there's a reason why this matchup is happening later in the card, not earlier. So respect the name, respect the game. With all that being said, a couple of weeks ago, I made a joke, but it was real when I said Julian Erosa is like the only guy I can think of that has more canceled fights in the UFC than actual fights. Wrong. He's not the only one. Alex Perez, 9 fights in the UFC, 11 canceled bouts in the UFC. So take that for what you want, for what it is. And none of his wins, if you look them up, are none of those fighters are in the UFC anymore. Is that all his fault? No, not really. Partially his fault because he beat those people. So make your own decisions, but my decision is going with the army of people. My decision rolls with Mike on this one. I'm signing up for Cop.
Alex Perez, I think that his key to winning this fight will be the calf kicks to slow down Manel Cop, because Manel Cop kind of has his front leg out there, but he's so fast and he has a lot of movement. So to slow him down, you got to hit that calf, right? And if you hit it precisely, 2 or 3 times, you could do some damage, right? You could hit a nerve. The first kick at the calf could hit a nerve. Yesterday, I went to striking class and we did some sparring, and my legs feel terrible today. Like it's crazy how like a couple kicks will debilitate you for during the sparring session or during or even after the fight. And I think that's the key for him, Perez, the kicks. If he could kick the calf, slow him down, he'll be able to have a better chance of getting in close and tight and taking him down. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I think Manel Cop has learned a lot from those first 2 losses in his UFC career, and he's not going to let that stuff happen again. His confidence is one of his key attributes, I think, right, in the cage. I think he was overconfident in his first 2 fights, to be honest with you, and that's what bit him in the ass. And he kind of turned that back down, and then kind of balanced it out with his skills. He's only getting better, right? He's in Vegas. His wrestling's getting better. I think his submission defense is better. I think his wrestling defense is better. I think his wrestling is just better overall. I don't see Perez really doing much in this fight. I think Cop goes in there and shows out and stamps his position in that title contention spot. I don't know who the next guy in line is, but I think Cop is going to be yelling it at the top of the rafters after this fight. I'm taking Cop via knockout in the second round for this one. All right, before we go to the next one, we got Anthony W saying Perez is a good fighter, but he just doesn't make the best decisions. We will see in this fight coming up if he does make the right decisions or not. Let's go. Women's flyweight contender bout between Andrea Lee and Macy Barber. Lee, 34 years old, 5'6" orthodox fighter, 13-6 record, 5-4 in the UFC. Wins over Cynthia Calvillo, Antonina Shevchenko, and Montana De La Rosa. 62% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 5 subs. 10 months between fights for her, and she is the betting underdog. Barber, 24 years old, 5'5", switch stance fighter, 6-2 in the UFC, 3 straight wins over Jessica Ai, Montana De La Rosa, and Miranda Maverick. 64% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 2 subs. Mike, this is a contrasting, right? It's very contrasting,
Yeah.
right? This fight. What do you see?
That's true. That's true. And we need to mention Andrea Lee. She lost a hometown decision in Texas against Lauren Murphy, and that was something that I remember people were up in arms. I think Joe Rogan was pointing out that one of the judges wasn't even watching the fight at one point. So concerning to say the least, but this specific matchup is interesting because I feel like we got a bull versus the matador here, and Macy Barber is the bull. She needs to use her physicality here. It's funny how when I watch Macy Barber fight, I know she's only 24 years of age, but she's still developing. And anytime she tries to fight a finesse game, it doesn't necessarily work out for her. She needs to stick to her strengths, push Andrea Lee against the cage, try to get the takedown and just maul her and do whatever she has to do. She has Uriah Faber in her corner, smart guy who is looking out for her best interests. So she's got to listen to him. And Andrea Lee may come out here and be winning a point battle early, but the longer it goes, I suspect we're going to see Macy Barber really turn on the jets here. And she has that, not only the it factor, but you listen to her interviews, she does not like losing, and she's a competitor. And at the end of fights, she's usually coming back. So that is what I like to see. Granted, I hope the skills catch up to where she's at, because there's still definitely room for growth. But I'll be picking Macy Barber here, and I understand why folks are selecting Andrea Lee. She's the more technical fighter, and she also maybe the hometown crowd could become a factor, but I think Macy Barber is going to walk away with the victory.
All right, JSpec.
Let's share a comment from Zach. Future meets the present as KGB gets the win over MKB at plus money via sub or decision. The fan poll, tight on this one, but coming out clearly, 57% supporting Macy Barber. So pretty tight margin on that, only 7% tipping the scale there for Miss Barber. A couple things you might not know about Ms. Barber is she had a partially torn rotator cuff at the end of her last fight. That's why she's been out for a little bit. She says she's all good, but we got to see for sure in action, right? So that's something to maybe put in your thinking zone. The next thing that I think is kind of interesting is she negotiated her own contract. So congratulations to her. She's on a new contract and negotiated all herself. 5 or 6 fight deal. Don't hang me on the numbers there, but good job. The other part about this though is she's already talking about plans of going to 115. And well, with that being said, I don't like when fighters do that. We've seen in the past plenty of times where fighters already eyeballing a different division and they crash the car in the division they're at right now. It's iffy. Now there is a 10-year age gap between the two, but it's not like KGB's too old or whatever, and that gap is experience, right? That brings a lot of experience between the two. So with that being said, this is really close for me, much closer than the odds indicate, but I'm not a bookie. I'm gonna go with Macy Barber in this, and the reason why is because that great analogy Mike used about the Matador and the Bull situation. Footnote: Lamborghinis are named after championship bulls, not Matadors. So there you go, Macy Barber for the win.
All right, this is an interesting one, right? Because you got Andrea Lee, who's probably the more technical fighter, and a fighter that follows the game plan, and then Macy Barber, who is, like you guys mentioned, the bull, the one that marches forward, the one that causes chaos in the cage. And when she causes chaos, she ends up winning. It doesn't necessarily end in a finish, but she ends up winning because she's just more active, and it just seems like she lands the harder shots. This one, if I was betting on this fight, I would wait until the first round is over to actually put down a bet, because there's a lot you can tell, I think, from the first round of this fight. If Macy Barber goes out there and is playing that like technical finesse game like Mike was talking about, that gives more of a chance for Andrea Lee to win that fight. But I don't think she's going to. I think she has found the coaches that she needs to utilize the skill set she has right now and develop them into the type of fighter that she needs to be a top 5, top 10 fighter. And I think Andrea Lee is the perfect opponent to test her skills out. And I don't think she gets a finish here, but I feel like Macy Barber is going to go out there and cause chaos and get the win by decision. So I'm taking Barber by decision in this fight. And also, their finishing rates, they're both sitting around 60%, but I don't, that's before the UFC, right? You got to think about like that. And also, Macy Barber has won 3 straight decisions, and one of them was a split decision. Now, let's move on to one of the most crazy. We're talking about chaos. This is going to be a chaotic fight, a featherweight bout between Nate Landwehr and Austin Lingo. Landwehr, 34 years old, 5'9" orthodox fighter, 16-4 record, 3-2 in the UFC. 2 straight wins against David Oyama and Ludovic Klein, and another win previous against Darren Elkins. 56% finishing rate, 8 KOs, 1 sub, 7 months between fights for him. Austin Lingo, 28 years old, 5'10" orthodox fighter, 9-1 record, 2-1 in the UFC. Back-to-back wins over Luis Saldana and Jacob Kilburn. 56% finishing rate, 3 knockouts, 2 subs, 19 months between fights, and he is the betting underdog. Mike, what do you got for us?
Man, you want to talk about a fight that's going to get people's fannies out of the seats? People are going to be standing, people are going to be having their adult beverages in their hands, and it is going to be mayhem during this bout. Nate the Train, man, the Onama fight, that I have issues backing fighters who become that reckless. I mean, he did not care if he won or lost that fight. He just wanted to get into a brawl, it seemed like. And Onama had his chances to take Landwehr out of there. I'm talking like 5, 6, 7 different times he could have ended the fight, but Nate the Train just kept marching forward, took the damage, and then put it on him. And you could see that that Nate Landwehr is a skilled fighter when he needs to be. And what's scary is I always wondered, folks like Kevin Holland, Nate Landwehr, they have the abilities. And then from a coaching perspective, how does that feel when you're giving instructions and they just abandon the game plan completely? And Austin Lingo, I mean, he can come out here and cause problems for Landwehr if Landwehr gets completely reckless again. I mean, anybody could capitalize on those moments if they'd like, but I have to lean Landwehr here. I know that the line is coming in a lot. We're talking Landwehr was, I think, a -300 or so favorite, -250. Now it's a -200. And I think that has to do also in part due to Lingo being the Texan fighter and Landwehr. I think he's going to win over the crowd in Texas, though. And the second round, if this hits the second and then the third round, I see him standing completely that during the minute break and raising his hands up and getting the crowd going before the third round starts. And I see Landwehr finishing this fight in the third round via TKO.
Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, make your picks during the show, leave your predictions in the comments, and I'll throw them up. JSpec, what do you got?
All right, got a comment from STD, Nate the Train, baby. Den coming in with Nate by Mama Never Raised No Bitch. And the fight poll coming in pretty clear, 65% for Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr, he's not on the Wheaties box yet. He's not on kids' lunch boxes yet. But for the frequent fight watcher, for the hardcores, they love the guy. All right. And if you didn't see him versus Elkins, please go back. You're missing out on one of the best fights. So definitely go check that out. Now, this pairing of fights is actually kind of like second chance prom, right? Because Landwehr was supposed to fight Alex Caceres, that fell through. So jumps in Austin Lingo, and Austin Lingo was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago against Ricardo Ramos. So there we go. The guys missed their fights, but get the fights, and now they're fighting each other, and it's all working out, kind of, sort of, whatever. It's always tough to go with the fighter that is making that replacement. Is the replacement fighter, right? That's always a big negative. Let's be honest. So, man, it's just so hard to go against Landwehr as a fan and just hearing from people. I know Lingo's a skilled fighter, and just like Mike said, if he's a little too chaotic, a little too brawly, well, that's when you get messed up by another professional. So play it how you want, but I'm signing up. I got my train ticket right here. Give me some Landwehr.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. Lingo, he's never been finished in his career. You know what I mean? And I don't think Nate Landwehr, he's a juggernaut. Let's describe him as that, right? Like that Oyama fight. If you haven't watched that fight, go back and watch that fight. He was knocked out at one point, and when he hit the ground, he woke back up. I was surprised that the ref let him continue, right? Because Oyama was on him like a hyena. So yeah, go back and watch that fight. Incredible. It's incredible that Nate Landwehr came back from that. That's what shows you that he is a dog. He's a guy that's gonna fight for your money. Anthony, Anthony W right here. He says that speaking of willing to perform, Nate the Train will always fight for your money. That's right. He will always, and that's important in picking fights, right? A guy that's gonna fight tooth and nail, for you. Not necessarily for you, but for himself. And I think Nate Landwehr goes in there. I feel like he has all the skills to take this, and that's why he's the betting favorite. I'm gonna take Nate Landwehr. I think Lingo is gonna be tough enough to last, though. I think he's gonna last all 3 rounds. I think Nate gets the decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nate goes in there and submits him in the 3rd round. I could see a submission in the 3rd round after maybe Lingo takes a beating, right? Co-main event spot. Let's look at this. Women's bantamweight contender clash, so to say, between Holm and Yana Santos. Holm, 41 years old. Man, she is an anomaly. A woman fighting at 41 is very rare. 5'8" southpaw, 14-5 record, 7-6 in the UFC. Wins over Irene Aldana, Raquel Pennington, and Megan Anderson. These are recent wins. 57% finishing rate, 8 knockouts, 10 months between fights for her. Santos, 33 years old, 5'6" orthodox fighter, 14-6 record, 4-3 in the UFC. Wins over Caitlin Vera, Julia Stolorenko, and Marion Renault. 57% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 1 sub, 21 months between fights due to pregnancy. And she is sitting at the betting underdog. Mike, I don't know what to think about this fight, man. This is a confusing one.
I have no idea why the UFC chose this as the co-main event. To be honest, they had so many other matchups they could have chosen for this spot on the card. Oh, tough spot. I thought Caitlin Vieira was actually going to send Holm into retirement, to be honest. I'm surprised to see her here in this spot, but she still has the skills if she wants to play the pitter-patter game on the outside like she does, or wants to just cage press against Yana Santos. It's tough for me to pay such a steep price on Holm, but one thing I will say is I think the more likely outcome, and I know that I would say Kunitskaya, but Santos, she recently had a baby, right? And she's in her mid-30s, and you have a 41-year-old lady who is nearing the end of her road, who doesn't necessarily have the knockout punch we saw against Ronda Rousey. What took place, and how many years ago was that? That was many moons ago. So if you want to drop this price down significantly, you can take a look at Holm via decision, and that's going to be my pick here. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Holm, to see her fade late at 41 years of age. Does she still have the cardio to keep rolling after that? I honestly think that Vera loss really took a lot out of the wind from her sails. I'll be picking Holm via decision.
All right, JSpec, we got
Andrew coming in with take the over. It's free money. Neither of these two at this stage have finishing ability. I expect this to be a clinch fest for 15 minutes. The fan poll comes in with a clear message from the fans. Holm with 72% of the support from the fans. Pretty big margin there. Yeah, you guys mentioned it, and I'm going to echo it. Yana, recent mother, baby makes 1 in April. So congratulations to the Santos family. That's super awesome. I don't know anything about giving birth, and I never will. But I'm assuming from everything I've ever heard in my life that it's really hard, and it's not like it enhances your body. It's not like you get suddenly way stronger because of it, and actually scientifically it reduces your bone density. I don't think that's going to be a factor here. But the point is, that is some things to consider. On the other side, we have Holm, 41, still going. I maintain my theory that 42 is the exact expiration date of strikers. I haven't really seen that even in the men's category. I think basically Holmes got to I think her birthday's in October. Maybe it's November. I think it's October. So we kind of got an expiration date there. Does she have magic in her for a couple more, at least one more, at least this fight? We're going to find out and see. I just think even as we're getting a slightly, or maybe however you want to describe it, a lesser version of Holm than obviously the championship version that she was, I still think that fighter is higher than Yana. And that's just the way I feel about it. That's the way a lot of fans feel about it, as I read out the poll. So my choice is Miss Holm going for the magic, right? Being an older woman, shutting it down as a striker. So go, Miss Holm, go.
all right. We got I don't even know how to pronounce your name, but guys, Holmes is like 60 years old. Yes, she is old for a fighter. Tay Baza Holmes is co-main because it's Holly Holmes. She got like 4 title shots in a row. Anthony W seems like the kind of fight to be pitter patter and overly careful. Anthony again, the fuck that's posting twice for my B. I don't know what that even means. Someone mentions Holmes signed a 6-fight contract. Yes, and Zach is saying that he's curious why that would be a good idea. It's a good idea because they want to lock her in and they don't want her to fight anywhere else. That's why they would do that. Tay Baza also mentioning Holmes trying to be the oldest fighter in the UFC. Hey, if she wants to be the oldest fighter in the UFC, let her try, man. Why not? You know what I mean? I'm not a type of person or a fighter or just a person to tell someone to retire. That's not me. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't want people to tell me to retire, right? Patrick Wilkins, first time here. Let's go, fellas. Appreciate you, Patrick. Man, this fight, what other pick would you have? You got Santos, who's been out for 21 months. She's in her mid-30s. She's coming back from pregnancy, and we've seen fighters come back from pregnancy, and usually their first fight back, they don't look like the fighter that they should look like, right? And you got Holmes, who is in incredible shape for 41 years old. Have you seen the photos, right? She's always been in incredible shape, and she moves around too much. And I think Santos's only path to victory is to corner her and press her against the cage and get her in the clinch and win that way, win rounds like that. I don't think that that's going to happen. She might get her there, but Holly Holmes likes to play in the clinch as well, right? So they're going to tussle there for a little bit. But I think at distance, Holly Holmes is going to be able to pitter-patter her way to a decision. I say Holly Holmes, pitter-patter, decision win. I love pitter-patter. Not really, but, for entertainment's sake. Main event time, bantamweight. This is a crazy, crazy matchup, right? Just insane. Bantamweight is just crazy as a whole, but just this one is just, I love it. I love that it's 5 rounds. Marlon Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. Vera, 30 years old, 5'8" switch stance fighter, 22-7-1, 14-6 in the UFC, 4 straight wins. against Dominic Cruz, Rob Font, Frankie Edgar, and Davey Grant. 73% finishing rate, 8 KOs, 10 subs, 7 months between fights for him, and he is the betting underdog. On the flip side, you got Cory Sandhagen, 30 years old, 5'11" switch stance fighter, 15-4 record, 8-3 in the UFC. He has wins over Song Yadong, Frankie Edgar, and John Lineker. 67% finishing rate, 77 KOs, 3 subs, 6 months between fights for him. What an incredible matchup, Mike. Let's see your analysis.
Man, John and JSpec, I just, first of all, thank you for having me on this week. I appreciate it. One thing that really sits with me is both of these guys have experienced the burn of a controversial loss. You look at Marlon Vera and his fight against Song Yadong, and there have been others that have really, he seems to have really, it has lit a fire under him to not get burned by the judges. And then you look at Cory Sandhagen and his fight against TJ Dillashaw, that was something that a very tough pill for him to swallow. This matchup is phenomenal. Props to Sean Shelby and the crew for booking this as the main event. All hands on deck. Everyone's going to be excited for this bout. The way I see this playing out is you have Cory Sandhagen, who is he's the better round winner. He is the more fleet of foot. He also is the more dynamic striker. You have Marlon Vera, who has a deceptively solid ground game if the fight gets there. That is a real threat on the mat. You also have someone who is tough as nails, and someone who, I mentioned it in my earlier breakdown today, that it takes him a while to get his engine revved up, but once he does, he's ready to go. But the problem is that usually happens around the midway through the second round, where he figures things out. This is in the larger octagon. You have Cory Sandhagen, who I suspect is going to be landing the better shots at range. He's going to be going to the body. He's going to be landing kicks. I know Marlon Vera is going to be trying to chop Cory Sandhagen down. We saw the O'Malley fight and others, but you also go back to the O'Malley fight and you saw O'Malley was basically having his way early with Vera there. The way I see this playing out is that Sandhagen is going to get up on the scorecards. He's going to be cerebral in his approach, and I know that he has his deficiencies on the mat, and that could be a real problem here if there is the threat of a submission for Vera, where that is a possibility. But I'm going to be picking Cory Sandhagen to win, and I think that even though we're in Texas, that what we see when it goes to the judges, it's going to be crystal clear that Cory Sandhagen is ahead, and also it is not out of the realm of possibility for Cory Sandhagen to win this fight inside the distance. I have to put that out there as well. I have thought about this. I've broken down the tape. I've spent, honestly, probably about 10, 12 hours on this specific matchup, and I'm going to be picking Cory Sandhagen to win. But the other side of the coin here, JSpec and John, I have to mention, is that Marlon Vera is a fighter who will not go away. He's someone that if you do not finish him, he's going to come back. He's going to figure you out, and he's going to make every punch and every kick count. And he's going to do whatever the hell he can to make the most of those opportunities. So it's not like I'm counting Marlon Vera out. I would never do that. He's made me a lot of money in the past also. Both of these fighters have. But I will say I'm going to be picking Cory Sandhagen. I think that he has more tools at his disposal, and that he's both of these fighters, the arrows pointed up. So it's a shame that somebody has to lose. I'm going to be picking Sandhagen.
JSpec.
All right, let me read some comments from the fans. Spawn saying, I think Chito weathers an early storm from Cory Sandbaggins and then totally beats the Hobbit out of him like he did Job Font. So many puns there. Tay Baza, I got Sandman. It's scary Chito can get the Joe Blow at any minute, but that doesn't warrant me to pick him. Overall, I think Cory is a better fighter, more volume, the way he mixes his shots nicely, amazing body shots, leg kicks, and I think he has the better wrestling. Last but not least, Brianna Frost coming in with hard one. I'm going with Sandhagen by decision. The fighter, the fan poll comes in a little more margin than I thought. Marlon Vera getting the go ahead by the fans. 61% of the fans signing up for Mr. Vera in this one. I kind of figured just the way people have been talking, people love Chito Vera. I mean, they just love the dude. I don't think it's anything against Sandhagen. I didn't really catch any Sandhagen hate when I was poking around. Just people love Chito, dude. And I'm kind of one of them. But when looking at it, there's a couple things I want to share. Sandhagen got some pretty sweet training partners. He mentioned he's getting his grappling in with Ryan Hall. He's getting his striking in with Sergio Pettis. And then he's getting his wrestling in with Taiwan Claxton. All right, those are all pretty good dudes in all of those departments. That's and then of course Vera's training with good guys, but I don't know any of their names, so I'm sharing what I got. The other thing you might want to consider about Chito and his run right now is all of those great fights and stuff he's been having are all dudes 35 or older. All right, and we know what that means. All right, I'm not going to throw any shade about it, but that's something to consider. Now, lastly, I love Chito Vera, so please don't blow me up and say I'm hating on Chito. I love Chito, and that's probably the reason, because I want him to win, is the reason why I'm going to go the opposite direction and pick Sandhagen in this fight. I just think that Chito needs home runs to win. I don't think he's going to out clever Sandhagen. I don't think he's going to pitter patter him. If we could use that, and that's where I'm going. I'm going Sandhagen on this one.
All right. Make sure you guys watching, make sure you guys download the app. It's in the descriptions. Hit that subscribe, hit that like, and hit that share if you can. And yeah, go in and download the app and play against us, man. We're always making picks every week. The show is every week on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern with a different analyst, and Mike is a reoccurring one. So join us. Yeah, there you go. We got some comments here. Patrick Wilkins, Chito with highlight reel head kick. Tay Baza, Sandman, the GOAT emoji. Anthony W, yeah, bro, how can you bet this? Chito always losing till he wins. How am I supposed to predict that? That is a good point you make. Let's see some other comments here. We got the man right here. Vera lost 3 years ago. WTF. Let's see if we got any other predictions here. He says, stop hating on Chito. Already, let's go. AllStar apps. Appreciate that. Now, let's get to my pick. Vera, man, he has turned into an incredible fighter. I think a lot of people at the start of his career didn't believe he would come this far, to be honest with you. But he's made the right adjustments. He's moved to the States. He's even moved camps, right? I believe he was at Oyama with Alex Perez, and then he moved his camp over to Ruka with Jason Perillo, right? I believe Jason Perillo is basically his head coach, and there's a lot of fighters right now over there that train with him or that is coached by him. You know, you got Mackenzie Dern, you've had Michael Bisping, you had BJ Penn. You know, I mean, these are champions. They've become champions with Jason Perillo. And I'm very impressed by Vera and what he's done. And he's become a very likable guy as well, right, throughout the years. You know, he's not a guy that just kind of like stays quiet. He has those one-liners, right? He makes headlines with his interviews. I like that. Sandhagen, on the flip side, he's very opposite, right? He's just a very good fighter, right? He's not on the news. He's not doing all these interviews and spouting out like insane opinions. He's just plain, and he knows that, right? So you guys got to take all of that out of the equation. All of that stuff, take it out of the equation. Just look at them as fighters and how they've developed throughout the years. I feel like Vera has taken more damage throughout the years compared to Sandhagen, right? And I think Sandhagen is just a little bit more crisp on the feet, and he's faster. I don't know if he necessarily has the power that Vera has, because I think Vera can knock out Sandhagen with one shot if he can land it, but he has to set it up. Sandhagen is so smart, right, with his skills, and he can grapple. That, I think that's the X factor. Even Vera has a lot of submission wins, but I would give the edge the grappling edge to Sandhagen. I think that these guys will cancel each other out, and this fight is gonna play out on the feet. And I think Sandhagen, he needs to win. I think he's gonna go out there and have a good game plan and dance around Vera and not be susceptible to the big shots. I see Sandhagen winning this fight via decision. It's gonna be a long fight. I think it's gonna be a fight where we're gonna be on the edge of our seat every single round and be debating like who won the round. But I think Sandhagen is just gonna be one step ahead of Vera in this fight. But hey, I would not be surprised if Vera goes out there and shows us another level as well. You never know what's going to happen in this division, and whoever wins this fight puts them into a good position, right, in the title picture as well. Especially with what's his name, Marab saying that he won't fight Aljamain Sterling. That only helps everybody else in the division, right? It's just like, why, you know what I mean? I understand why, but I'm saying like him not fighting the next champion after, you know, Cejudo and Sterling fight. If Sterling wins, it gives a path for Vera or Sandhagen to fight for the title next, right, Mike? Don't you agree?
Yep. It's the best division in the sport for a reason. The most talent-rich division in the entire sport. If you look at Bellator and others, 135, man, solid. So excited about it. Excited about the future, and I'm not excited that we do have a week off after this, but before UFC 287. So, but glad to be a part of the breakdown tonight. Thank you.
Of course, man. We're gonna have Mike on the show again in the future. Make sure you guys go into the descriptions, download the AllStar app. The best way to watch the show is to have the app open and make your picks as we make the picks. Hey, you can invite us to play against you. You could take our points, stack up your points, level up, win prizes on the app. There's a prizes section on the app. So go in there and check it out and see what you can win. But other than that, Mike, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can catch you, and your analysis on other platforms.
Sure, thank you. I've been doing a lot of work on my YouTube channel, Mike's MMA Picks. If you could check that out when you get a chance, I'll be posting individual breakdowns throughout the rest of the year. Also, I write articles for MMA Odds Breaker and the Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show that I've been doing, and just interacting on Twitter at Mike's MMA Picks on a regular basis. I really enjoy the community and the passion that is for mixed martial arts, and it's something that it never goes away. It's something that's continued to grow over time as I've gotten older, and I'm just grateful to share this experience with everybody. And thanks so much, because I feel alive when I do this, and I really mean what I say when I say that. So thank you.
JSpec, what do you got to say before we bounce out?
I just want to invite everyone to not only follow me here, but follow the AllStar on Twitter, because that's where we do our watch parties. Every UFC event, we do a watch party. We already had 3 fighter guests in 3 consecutive weeks. Are we going to have one again this week? We'll come and find out. We have fans of all levels, brand new fans, lifelong fans, men, women, everybody. Wrong hand motion. Everybody is welcome to join. Stay as long as you can. We make picks, make jokes, and like I said, special guests like fighters come around and you get to ask them questions. So looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, you guys make sure you follow JSpec, because he'll pull up the polls every Wednesdays, and you can make your vote, put your comments in there. If you're gonna miss the show, you could put your predictions in a tweet, right? And he'll put it, or he'll mention it on the show. Yeah, follow them and go subscribe to Mike's MMA Picks YouTube channel to get your analysis, you know, deeper analysis and bets as well, right? He's gonna give you some good bets. You know, I mean, he has a good track record. But other than that, we'll catch you guys next Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern for actually no. Like Mike said, there is no show next week. So we will have a week off. I'm happy about that, to be honest with you. And we'll be back. What do you got?
Oh, I just want to say the next week, since we are off, if you are in Las Vegas and you're going to the PFL, see me. Let's take a picture. Let's like get on the internet together. All right. If you're going to the PFL, I'll be there during UFC not being on. So even though there's not the UFC, we still got fighting, baby. So let's go.
There you go. So we'll be back the week after for our show breaking down UFC 287 in Miami. That's a major, major card. We'll have lucrative MMA betting for our analysis. It'll be his first time on the show, and he'll be giving us his picks. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good weekend, man. Enjoy your time. Enjoy the fights. Peace out.